All right, I just learned that I am a Bitcoin sub-coach. Does anyone know what that means? I'm a Bitcoin maxi in Hindi. Learned something new. All right. Next up is Siddarth Bharwani. He is the CFO of Jetking Infotrain, a leading Indian IT training institute. He will discuss their pioneering move as India's first public company to adopt Bitcoin as a Treasury reserve asset, inspiring other Indian businesses to explore Bitcoin and do the same. Welcome, Sid.
Hi, good evening. My name is Siddarth Bharwani. I am CFO and JMD of Jetking Infotrain Limited. I have a lot of uphill tasks. We are possibly the smallest Bitcoin treasury company in the list of Bitcoin for corporations. But it's exciting. Indian market is super exciting, and we are really looking forward to scale this up. Today, we are at just about 15 odd Bitcoin. And we are a 10 million odd market cap company. But the idea is to catch up to the guys up there, right? So it's going to be an interesting journey. And I'll give you a small background around what the business was. So we started as a radio and television manufacturing company. And this is a 77-year-old brand in India. All of the work that we did in the last 77 years has been in technology. And we pivoted that business into radio manufacturing, television manufacturing, and eventually IT and IMS. We got to COVID, and COVID was one of the most difficult times for the business to understand where do we go from here. And we saw the only way we can sustain is possibly to have our education operations going. We had the operations on, and today we have a revenue stream from direct student fees, franchise royalties, and one-time franchise fees is what we cater to. So when we hit COVID, we were at about 200 centers across India. And what we saw was there's no chance that we can build this business back. And if we had an option to build it back, what would we do? We saw a list of about 15 odd different businesses or ideas or acquisitions that we can possibly look at. And we asked ourselves one question, right? And the question was, what is the one thing we do that will make everything else redundant or unnecessary in our entire lifespan of the business, so to speak? And what we said was, the answer was, of course, to build a Bitcoin-centric company. And how did we think about building a Bitcoin-centric company? It was in three formats. It was to build a BTC model, which was to do with treasury, education, and adoption. If we keep focusing on these three models, the long-term story for Bitcoin and Jetking is our roadmap. So India is a tricky market, right? We are currently with, if dollar and inflation around the dollar and the money printing problem around here is so high, India is worse. In 1986, for example, the dollar to INR to dollar ratio was about 12. And today it's sitting at 86. So it's up about 7 times. What we realized was we cannot keep sustaining INR in our balance sheet. There is no chance we can look at INR and keep going on with our business. And if we compared INR to BTC, it was just going down to pretty much zero. And when we convert the BTC appreciation towards INR, we see there's a drastic shift back into making sure that we hold all our currency in Bitcoin. So we said, let's sit down and let's possibly adopt a Bitcoin treasury strategy. What we did was reached out to the best legal team, and Bitcoin was kind of illegal in India at that stage. This was March 2022. It was kind of illegal in India. And what we saw was, first, we need to get the regulations clear. First, we need to make sure that there is no regulatory problems around this. We went ahead and hired the best people who got the ban uplifted from the entire Bitcoin vicinity, so to speak. We built some best practices internally. Michael Saylor's entire presentation was one of the most crucial pivots for us, where we realized that this is a way to go. Sorry. We moved from there. We created this entire documentation around how we should take our stakeholders to possibly adopt Bitcoin. Bunch of very key stakeholders here was SEBI, Bombay Stock Exchange, and Ministry of Finance. They literally, when we had conversations with them, were asking us, where is your Bitcoin? Where is Bitcoin? We would like to see it. We would like to touch it. We would like to feel it. And there was no chance we could show them. So we had to explain them from the scratch, literally how Bitcoin worked, how we had to possibly look at custody, and how the whole 9 yards. It's not as mature as the market here or in Japan or anywhere else in the world. So we did some workshops with them. We spent copious amounts of time just explaining how Bitcoin works, how the entire asset class works. Taking a 77-year-old business, a legacy business, which was largely to do with education, and pivoting that to become relative to one of the most riskiest asset, which is what was considered the most riskiest asset towards Bitcoin, was making that switch that we are now a Bitcoin-centric company. We adopted this, so we spent some time with the Bitcoin team, Bitcoin INC team in October of last year. When we saw the playbook was successfully executed by Saylor, what we decided was this is it. This is what we want to kind of do. We invested in 2022 Bitcoin and Ethereum. I got out of the meeting, called my brothers, and said, I think we should just pivot into a 100% Bitcoin company. We sold all the Ethereum at that stage. We had some stable coins. We sold everything. And we went and bought all of it. We went and bought Bitcoin from all of it. We announced this strategy in Bitcoin Abu Dhabi last in December. And since then, the stock appreciation is, XIR is 224%. India creates a very big tax arbitrage, similar to what it is in Japan. When your Bitcoin directly is taxed at about 55% in Japan. In India, it's 30%, and your equity is 12.5%. So the idea was to also get people to trust Bitcoin via a regulated stock, which is Jetking. India happens to have one of the most deepest derivative markets, and what are the type of options that we can possibly do is unknown to us at this stage because it's a very new market. We are just in the first stage of our preference issue. We will create this pref issue, which is already, it's already done pretty much. And the next stage is to possibly issue equity shares. And once we reach a certain level and certain threshold, we will end up creating different instruments that are possible to create in the Indian regulation market. Here's a small roadmap that we have in terms of what we are looking to do, which is connecting it back to our Bitcoin treasury and education and adoption strategy. In the next 6 months, we're looking to raise and scale to about 180 Bitcoin. In the next year, we'll be touching about 1,800 Bitcoin, and ultimately before the next halving, around 2030, whatever instruments are at our disposal, we will touch about 18,000 Bitcoin. We still have about 60 odd classrooms and centers across India. We'll be establishing Bitcoin learning ecosystems where people can understand about Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin cold wallets, Bitcoin, everything to do with Bitcoin in terms of how they can possibly build on top of Bitcoin, as well as possibly become whatever else you can build on top of Bitcoin is what we'll be creating. The third part is adoption, and we are partnering up with a lot of people to educate them about Bitcoin. And in this case, this is just an example of partnering up with a Bitcoin owning cashback company and exposing them into our ecosystem and getting them to understand more about stacking sats. I guess there is a lot of let's say, development that has to happen in India because the market is super hyper regulated in terms of equity and what are the instruments that you can use. And so far, it has been a more of an educative journey. And eventually, I do believe that once this market opens up, the opportunity here will be as big as possibly US and Japan. Thank you so much.